What is your number one tip for successfully growing a healthcare practice?
Yeah, I would say my number one tip is it's really important to understand the key metrics that are important to this specific practice. So I think establishing or developing a set of key performance indicators is really helpful. You could do that in the context of billing. You could do that in the context of patient satisfaction, whatever it might be. Right? Really think of like 3 to 5 things, and that's something that grounds you and anchors you every month, every week when you think about how we're performing, how we're doing. And you have a baseline of, for instance, with billing, there are things like the days in accounts receivable or your first pass rate. Uh, could be things related to cash flow, right? Whatever it might be. I think just having in your mind what are the best things that we can do from that perspective, and then how far off are we from that? How much better are we performing? I think it grounds you in that regard, and I think that would be probably my best tip is just kind of think of 3 to 5 things that you want to measure yourself on.
Okay. And if you were to suggest a list of five, the main KPIs to follow, would you have a list like that?
Yeah, I would say from a billing perspective, and then I'll do maybe a mix, right? So I think from a billing perspective, you can think of the days in accounts receivable. So what that means is essentially from when you see the patient to when you get paid, how long does that take? So how many days is that possibly taking? And so if it's taking 45 days, for instance, or 60 days, the higher it is, it's more problematic for you because it means it takes longer for you to get paid. So you might, have cash flow issues potentially, right? Until you get a bulk of payments or whatever it might be. So I think that that's a really good one. Also on the billing, it's things like first pass rate for your claim. So it means that your claim makes it clean, 95% of the time the first time you send it. And the reason maybe something like that's important, especially as a small scaling practice, you're wearing multiple hats. So imagine if you have a bunch of work you have to go back and repeat. That's going to be obviously draining on your time and resources. So something like that. And then I think the patient satisfaction side, I think, is just as important. We live in a culture where doing your research, looking for reviews, looking for stars is really important, right? So I think sometimes an under appreciated or under invested part of practices is marketing, right? So being able to make sure that you have reviews up there, that people are having good experiences. It's not just about having 5 stars. Like genuinely, there's good experiences going on. So I think those are probably the areas that I would tell practices to focus on.
Awesome, awesome. That's a lot of inspiration for what we might dig into later on in this show. So thanks for sharing that. Really cool tip. I'll add it to the collection.